Pugs and Parker for a Thursday evening, the final show of an otherwise wonderful week. Let's not delay. Here's Parker. Look at him. Look at him. He's proud Texan. Got nooses right behind him.
It's not nooses.
What do you call those?
I call them guitar cables is what I call them.
Okay, all right. Well, sorry. It kind of looked like a noose to me.
I know. That's what Yankees see whenever there's like a rope and sort of a general round arrangement of any sort. They're like, oh, my goodness, is that what a noose looks like?
Yeah. Yeah, well, the way you said, you're like, it's not a noose. Here's the thing. A noose is like an actual thing that isn't like necessarily used for what it's most famous for. Like, nooses are things that are used to tie off things and livestock and all of that and hurting animals. I mean, now we all know that it has connotations of, racial injustice and, subjugation and all that. But, what if you were like a noose manufacturer and all of a sudden like nooses became like a really bad thing? You'd be like, what? I don't know. These are the things I think about. Let's bring in Emil.
That's adorable, though. The guy from Chicago telling the dude that grew up on a farm. Did you know ropes can be used for things other than hanging black? Yeah, we do. We use every damn day.
Well, when they started doing that, they were like, "Go get a noose." Like the first guy who got lynched, there were already nooses being used for other things.
Sure, but also I imagine somehow in your scenario, you never owned a rope growing up, but I owned many ropes, right? For different occasions, I had different styles of rope, different thicknesses of rope, different lengths of rope.
Wait a second. Hold on, because you'll jump in. I know you've had plenty of rope experience in your life. James, I will have you know I have had rope experience.
Good.
For snow, you got to tow things. You have to have snow ropes. You got all those kinds of... what has your life of rope been like?
Well, first of all, I've been listening to this nonsense. Like, who makes nooses? There is not a noose making company.
In 1850, there probably was.
Well, and a noose is something you tie out of a knot. You don't buy it pre-made.
Right, but he's like,
right.
oh, there's all these makers of nooses. Like,
you know why you say that? Because it's 2023 and they've been run out of business by bad branding.
What the hell are you talking about? Like, a noose is a type of a knot.
Right.
Yeah, you don't need a maker.
Well, some people do. Some folks might need a nooseman.
No, I think that's a 100% like self-made. You don't have to be a crafty guy to figure it out. And there's never been a big noose.
I mean, he acted like there was a whole industry of people that were shipping nooses. Like, you would go out to the hardware store, and there'd be like an assortment at Home Depot, like of people that were making nooses.
All right, enough noose talk. Jesus Christ, 3 old white guys talking about nooses is a bad look.
All right, I'm just going to end it with this. Let's not say there was an entire industry, but there were people who were good at making them.
No, I don't think
there were. And those people suddenly had a skill that was looked down upon.
You're looking maybe, oh my God.
Like before, I'm talking about before they started using.
Well, before there were cowboys and Indians and there was just rope.
Yeah.
No, look, noose is no more of a skilled profession as compared to tying your shoe. That's the knot that we're all most familiar with that we use every day. And is there anyone who makes their living from tying the best knot of your shoe?
What do I know? I'm a city
very little. Very little. You've never even owned a rope.
We're gonna let the captain at the front of the boat steer us clear of noose makers on the ocean.
We're having a conversation. Speaking of this, a couple of dads I got with me. Let's have another dad conversation. So, speaking to my boy today, my boy is 13. We all have boys in the relative same age group. Although, isn't it funny that we would say that because we're old, but none of them would say they're in the same age group because the difference between 13 and 11 is way bigger than the difference between 29 and 27.
Yeah, but okay, look. One has, you have 13. Mm-hmm. I have a 12-year-old boy.
Yeah.
And you have an 11-year-old boy. And then I also have a 9-year-old boy. So, I mean, it can't be tighter than that.
we're destined for doom tomorrow.
No, we're not. No, you know what I think we found? I think we found the glue that we put in between. We add these two kids at 9 and 12. Mace and Dom are not gonna fight. This will be what stops them from fighting because now there's buffers.
Yeah, probably so.
Yeah, I'm fearing it's going to be the two little ones against the two big ones, and that's not going to end well.
Yeah, no, it won't. Anyway, so I'm having a conversation with my kid today, and he calls me up and he goes, "Dad, I want to talk sports." Which, oh my God, I mean, as a dad, you love to hear that on the phone, especially if you're a sports nerd like me. So he goes, "So I've been thinking about it. Now, I don't know, I know Uncle E knows this, but he had been seriously considering moving his football position from interior lineman, offensive guard, to tight end, looking for a little glory. So, he's working on that. Everything from, trying to lose weight, working on his 40 time, all that kind of stuff. Calls me today. He goes, Dad, we got to change the plan. Change the plan. I'm like, okay, well, change the plan. No more tight end. I love it. The innocence of a 13-year-old, just to be able to do whatever, just drink, you know what I mean?
Change plans, right?
Yeah, change of life goals, like that.
Wait, so is he a tight end now or not?
No, doesn't want to be a tight end now.
Back to guard?
He laid on me today news that I got to be honest with you, fellas. I mean, it made this guy. I almost started to cry.
Are you going to say edge rusher?
Said he wants to play baseball now. And he wants to, his best buddy Josh is apparently a good pitcher, and they're getting him into baseball. So I got a dad question for you. He's never played organized baseball before. All he does is go to the cages with me, where he's a little, when he gets a hold of one. I mean, he whiffs a lot because he doesn't have any technique or anything. But when he gets a hold of one, he crushes them. Anyway, so we play catch, all that kind of stuff. He says he's going to go out for the team, his high school team, next year. Is that too late for him to be? I mean, he's going to be the kid on the freshman baseball team that has never played organized baseball before. What do you guys think of that?
I think it's going to be tough. I think it's going to be really tough.
Yeah.
Like, he's going to have to spend this off season, I would think, playing some organized baseball. I mean, it's just, you can't help but if you haven't played the game, there are just certain things in your head that have to be in your head in order for you to play that position.
Well, he knows the game, which is a pretty good start. Like, he knows the game. He's a fan of watching the game. He studies the game, all that kind of stuff. He's really become a fan. He's got raw skills. James, go ahead.
My turn. Okay, so you've played catch with him? You've gone to the batting cages with him? You probably have. Yeah, so you probably have a good idea of his fundamentals. How are his fundamentals? Because if he can catch, if he can throw, if he can hit, the rest of that team stuff can actually be figured out in just a matter of weeks.
Being completely honest, he doesn't know how to hit, but just on raw, accidentally made contact, he's a monster. He crushes the ball, but he has no technique in hitting. He knows how to stand in the box and he knows how to bat, but he's never had a hitting coach. He's never had anybody show him where he needs to make contact and where his back foot and he's all that stuff. So that's promising,
If he got thrown out there, would he hit 200? Would he hit the Mendoza line?
I couldn't. I've never seen him against an actual pitcher, so I wouldn't know. He's got a hell of an arm. The aim needs to be worked on. Like he can chuck a baseball, man. He can really throw it far. But it doesn't go where he wants. You know what I mean? If he's throwing from the outfield to home plate, it's going to the dugout, but it's coming into the dugout hot. I mean, he's got an arm. So the fun, I mean, he just doesn't have any. He doesn't have any training. But the raw potential there. His mom was very athletic. Me, not so much. But he seems to have his mother's natural athletic ability with certain things. Yeah, I don't know how that translates, but and that's not to say he's a super athlete. It's just to say it's surprising since he's my son because he's better than I was and stuff.
Yeah, you're being somewhat deferential.
I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm not. But I appreciate that.
No, I mean that in a good way. I mean, you're saying she's the more athletic of the two, generally speaking.
Oh, his mom?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, his mom's a little athlete. I mean, from
I don't think it's too late at all. I don't think it's the world is full of guys that just showed up and they're like, yeah, he's in the NFL now, but he didn't even play football until his junior year of high school. And then there's also the
Right? That's what I'm thinking. I'm like, that's not a Tim Anderson, who is one of the biggest stars in baseball today, didn't start playing baseball till junior year of high school. He was a
right
basketball player. So
that's
and I
not
think
the
that's
norm. That's the exception.
right.
But I bet you what is a little more closer to the normal side of the spectrum is guys that started playing late and they didn't go pro, but they were good enough to not be embarrassed, and they were good enough to make a difference, and they were good enough that they enjoyed the decision that they made to do it, and that's what we're looking for, really.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking for 3 sports for him in high school: football in the fall, wrestling in the winter, and then baseball in the spring.
Wrestling? What do you mean wrestling? Why that's not a thing?
Yeah, it is. What do you mean?
Okay, because we don't have wrestling in Bug Tussle. Well, we
You
don't have.
don't have high school wrestling?
No, no, we didn't have high school wrestling at my high school.
You know, they give scholarships for that, James. They
It's not. They probably get scholarships for fencing too, but I don't make them run around with the little musketeer sword.
Yeah.
What about like shot put or discus?
Yeah, we can throw inanimate objects. Oh hell yeah.
Yeah, and that's what Mace is right now. He throws shot on his middle school's track team, but he wants to play baseball now. His school didn't have a baseball team.
I think we do have a rodeo team, and we have a FHA team where it was embarrassing. Yeah. We didn't even get first, second, or third showing pigs at the East Texas State Fair. Chapel Hill didn't even place, but the kids from Bullard did. So.
I think of all the sports, getting started in baseball,
tough.
Like late is probably the second worst. I would say hockey would be one.
I agree with that.
Because you got to learn to skate too.
Yeah, baseball would be 2. And then I think it would be, I would say probably NBA 2 and NFL 1. Like, I think you could get into the NFL the latest. I think you could get into the NBA closest to the latest. And baseball would be, like, I think you got to have a little bit more experience and then just walk on.
Golf. Brady Morris says golf. Golf is hard, too. Golf, you have to be very well practiced.
But if you were smart when you were younger,
yeah,
and your parents like got you in the right vein, you should have been doing tennis and golf in middle school.
Yeah.
Because the population of golfers and the population of tennis players that are athletically as good is not. The pool's not as big.
You know what else you got to start real young at? What sport you can't start in high school and expect to be any good? Gymnastics and figure skating.
Oh, for sure.
Those people start at like 4 years old, man.
And 4 in the morning.
Unfortunately, we didn't have either one of those at Bug Tussle when I was growing up. They don't have it now, and it's not a sport anyway.
What is it?
Anything that is determined solely by judges.
So that's your okay. All right, that's interesting. I see. I'm not going to quibble with the terminology.
What do you mean that rodeo? Rodeo's got a judge.
Yeah, I don't consider the barrel racing is on a timer, and so that could be a sport. But no, you're right. The bull riding and the bronc busting, not a sport either.
Well, then let me ask you something. What do you?
Not a sport? Right. Are you kidding me?
If it's determined solely by judges, it's subjective and therefore not a sport.
I don't disagree with them. More of a contest.
Yeah.
A contest to impress a judging crew. Yeah,
like
absolutely.
Cannonball contest.
I get that. I get that. It's a contest being judged by individuals who are flawed. There is no absolute decision.
Yeah,
the way there are in other sports.
So how is it then in the Olympics if it's not a sport?
Well, there's a lot of trash in the Olympics that's not sports.
And they're in there.
No, come on,
dancing, bro.
They're just wrong, and they've always been wrong, and it's too late for them to change. They just call everything a sport, and they're wrong. I agree with you, James. I do. But let me ask you this.
You don't think gymnastics is a sport?
Not the parts that are solely determined by judges.
Yeah.
Right.
No. I think the people who participated in are super athletes, and I
Oh
think
yeah.
it's competition. But I wouldn't call it a sport. I
What
do.
do you mean not the part determined by judges? What part is not determined by judges?
James considers a sport to be anything that has an absolute outcome, like a final score in a football game or a final.
Yeah,
score in
no,
baseball.
but I'm saying in gymnastics, it's all determined by judges.
Well, then
Right.
it
So
all
he's saying it's not a sport.
Yeah.
Come on.
We're quibbling. We're doing exactly what I said I didn't want to do. We are quibbling over the perception of the word sport, not even the actual definition.
Right.
If you are not a sport as a gymnast, how is that
It's
possible?
a
You're a
flipping
competitor.
contest.
I
If there's
actually-
not goals or a timer or some
Yeah.
not subjective but objective determiner of the winner, and it's not just judges saying, "Oh, I think he flipped the best. Oh, I think she flipped the
Yeah.
best. Oh no, I think he did the little trick. He did the little
He's
twist,
right.
and he didn't bounce."
Well, that's all of
really good.
gymnastics.
I know.
There's no
No,
timer.
it's impressive. It's quite athletic. I can't do any of it. I got it, but it's not a sport. It doesn't meet my definition of sport, and you don't have to agree with my definition of sport. But you're not gonna, convince me to win over the respect that sports gets for these flipping contests.
So let me ask you.
I'm a little raw on
Okay,
this
just moving on.
subject.
That's all right. You don't have to
We're
follow.
not going to solve this tonight. I'm
Let
a
me-
dick.
but
I get it.
I do agree with what you're saying. Logically, I see what you're saying. The problem is that people's perception of what the word sport means is sometimes not exactly what you mean it. You mean it in the literal definition.
Well, I have a real hard time explaining where the boundary is, and that's a shortcoming that I'll admit. But the closest example I can give is basketball is a sport. The slam dunk contest
It's a
is
competition.
not a sport.
It's competition. Yeah. I
Yeah,
agree.
it's just a dunking contest.
Competitions are oftentimes athletic events, but yeah, they're not sports. I totally agree. But let me ask you this: based on that theory, what are Formula One drivers? Is Formula One a sport?
Man, I love that one because that is the gray area. That's sort of like the platypus of this argument. That
These drivers are doing it. It's who cuts the corner the best and who can pass there is no judge.
And there's a clock.
Yeah.
and
No, but that's just for speed. That's just for edification. of the race.
No, he said that there had to be a clock.
I get what you're saying. Yeah, I thought you meant judge.
right, and so that makes it lean towards sport. And so how does that work? Like, is it man plus machine that makes it legit? Because the guys that are flying drones, are they athletes? Are they doing a sport?
No, James, hold on. Let me help you here. This is where I would say it. I would say that it is a sport, but now we must start to quibble over the definition of what is an athlete. Like, is the driver, because it is sport, it's a mechanized sport, but it is a sport. And what role, how much props do we give to the person that we would otherwise refer to as an athlete? Is a race car driver an athlete? Since we've this.
Oh, yes.
Okay. A lot of people don't think they are athletes.
What he's got to endure in that car
I happen to agree with you.
is a lot different than his example of a guy that's standing there operating a drone he's not even part of the cargo.
Those Formula One drivers regularly take G's more than astronauts. I mean, what their bodies go through and how fit they have to be. I mean, they're taking water. I mean, like pumped into them through tubes. They have to weigh themselves after every race
Can they smoke a cigarette?
because they lose 15 pounds a race. That's how much.
What do you mean?
They
How could they smoke at 200 miles
Wait
an
a
hour?
second. F1 drivers don't smoke cigarettes. F1 drivers are all CrossFit athletes. Are you insane, dude?
No,
Well,
You're talking about 1970s NASCAR. You're talking about Buddy Bell. That's who you're describing.
There is nobody who had a lit cigarette in a NASCAR.
You ain't talking about Lewis Hamilton, baby.
I bet in the
I mean, what
70s
is
on
a-
the pit stops, they would like lean out and
Yes, of course
bang
they
through
did.
a camel in like 30 seconds or whatever.
Dude, Camel was like the #1 sponsor. Of course they were puffing butts. They would pull
The-
in. They'd hit one. They probably had one going in the ashtray.
Do you have any idea how loud the air has got to be whipping through at that mile an hour?
Yeah.
Dudes, I've
violently,
seen people smoke on motorcycles.
Not
This
possible.
this is something I've talked to the wife about
My old boss
fairly
Ted.
recently.
He
It's
used to smoke on his motorcycle.
Y'all, I love talking to people who are only slightly older than me because y'all confirm what we have been suspicious of. People, me and my wife's a little bit younger than me.
Oh, the kids. All right,
and-
ready for this,
yeah.
Grandpa Emil?
No, well, listen, like, I remember when I was really, really young. I mean, like 5 years old, and I remember being in my grandma's car, and she had like a Buick, and there was ashtrays in the front. There was also an ashtray in each door. And it was a 4-door car, which meant there was an ashtray in the handle area on the back seat, which means at some point the Buick car company was expecting all 4 of you bastards to be smoking at the same.
Yes, you had to be
Hand
able
crank
to
window.
smoke on either side.
If you wanted the windows down, it was an effort because they were hand cranked. So you had to. It wasn't even as easy as just hitting a button.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, that was a luxury item, the power window.
Going down the highway filled with smoke.
And so, like, I also remember, like, I flew once when I was 5 years old, and then I flew again when I was, I think, it was 7 years old. And I remember people actually smoked on the plane. And that was only the 2 times I saw it. I only saw it twice.
Oh my god!
And I didn't think. This is the only plane I'd been on. Yeah, of course. I guess people smoke on planes. Whatever.
I haven't seen it in 20 years, but up until about 20 years ago, you'd get on a plane, and I used to go into a panic if I got on a plane and the plane still had ashtrays. I mean, they were still using 1980s with the ashtrays in the armrests right up until about the year.
Well,
And I'm like, this
they
is an old-ass
improved their way
plane.
out of those.
Yeah.
And so
They improved their way out of those, but for years, even years ago, you would still see in the console, like the above
console,
your head, the console above your head, you would see where it would say no smoking. And that was like something that was always there because there would be a section you could smoke in and a section you couldn't smoke in the
all right, so we continue. So this is like Memento, or one of these like Tarantino flashback movies where me and the wife are trying to remember little details like this. And another thing I recall is like, wait a second, do you remember when we were kids, you didn't see people necessarily smoking in the theaters, but they did have ashtrays in the armchair of the theater, right?
Yeah, they did.
They did.
Yeah, but I don't remember. E, do you remember people smoking in movie theaters?
No, I think they banned that. Probably there was some like crazy fire that happened, and all of a sudden you couldn't do it in an auditorium.
I remember people smoking on TV, and I remember people smoking at like baseball and football games. Like when you'd go sit in the stands at a baseball game, everybody was smoking.
Okay, so I also remember giant ashtrays, and they were ornamental with pieces of freaking art on them and stuff in the hallway of the mall. We have the mall, and we only have one mall in Bug Tussle, so it's at the mall. I remember there being ashtrays inside in the hallway in the middle. I remember there being ashtrays by the bathroom. I remember there being ashtrays by the water fountain. So what me and my wife are piecing together was like, at some point right before we were born, God damn, people were really committed to smoking. Like, they weren't even casual about it. Like, cigarette at all times smoking.
Everybody started smoking at 15, right up until about 1985.
Yeah, it was like there was advertising that you were cool if you smoked. Like Joe Camel was like part of being cool in that era. And that's why they had to pay a lot of money, because they portrayed it as a sexy, cool, lifestyle.
If you were a 16-year-old girl at her first backyard kegger and she was nervous, that's where she should probably be smoking with the other girls. Bunch of bad girls. You know, those were the ones who smoked. But everybody did, and they got addicted. And that's how generation after generation. That, James, I wanted to touch on another thing because we talked about the poor noose guy.
Hang on,
got ran out of business.
Stop. What's with the fucking organ?
Baseball. It's opening day. It's just nice little.
You haven't heard that? That's been going on ever since Mason's going to be playing baseball.
I like it.
Can we let it go?
No, I think it sounds nice. You want me to let it go? I think it's.
Well, do we have to do it for like 30 minutes? It is kind of festive.
I don't know.
I had stopped hearing it for a while, and then I started hearing it again.
I have an observation.
Okay, sorry.
All right. So we talked about the noose guy and how he got ran out of business. Think about.
There was never a guy.
Oh, Big Noose. Right. They're like Big Tobacco. Big Noose got ran out of business.
We got them run out of business. Think of the heir. Think of a guy who's like our age now, but in the 70s, he was the heir to like an ashtray fortune. Like his company's dad's company's grandpa's company, they made ashtrays, and they had like they were in every store. There was like, and now every house in the 70s had multiple ash. Who's buying that? Those poor people got run out of business too. Big ashtray.
They were probably running their mouth right up until the end. They're like, yeah, like, what do you mean? Who do you think you're talking to? We got the ashtray contract for Southwest. We got the ashtray contract for Delta. We got the ashtray contract for United. We got the ashtray contract for Pan Am, WA.
We got the mall in Tyler. We're starting a side company that's going to provide all the sand for those ashtrays in public places. More money, more money.
Oh, man.
And they had the rights to the typewriter and the rights to the Polaroid camera. And you got in the fax machine. They had all those things. And the payphone, you know. They had the payphone and the touch tone, you know, versus the rotary dial. They had the actual touch tone. I mean, there's so many of them.
Here's something on that. So let's talk about cameras and photos. Do you know there's like 0 pictures of me from like my 20s? You know why? Because it was hard to take a picture of somebody back then. You didn't just have we've got a camera handy for kids today are having their entire lives documented. And I'm telling you, there are probably 0 pictures of me between the ages of 19 and 20 or 19 and 30 that are floating around out there. No, that's not true because I was on the radio. But I mean, like there is nothing that documents my teenage years. I got one picture of me as a teenager.
The bigger hurdle was that to have a print of them, you had to pay for every single print. So if you ever wanted to see these pictures, you had to pay for it.
Yeah. You had to drop it off at Walgreens and wait a week. It was awful.
Come back days later.
The ones we'd find of you would like have sample on it. Like they're still in the box. You're like thinking, "Hey, Ma, we gonna buy these?"
And then, James, you had to contact all your friends and said, "Do you want copies?" You'd have to ask people individually. You couldn't just show it to them like you had a phone, right? You kept your pictures at home. So that was another part of it. You have to ask your friends, and then you got to order more copies, and then they got to pay for it.
But this
Venmo.
This picture BS is just total crocomonious like crap right now because so we got rid of the Polaroids. We don't have any more film. We don't have any more of the photo booths you pull up and drop your shit off, you know, and get your all that. So it's digital now, right? And so now where in the hell do I keep all this shit? Like where am I supposed to put it?
Well, wherever you decide, it's going to take up less room than the physical copies of the photos.
Yeah, but what it's going to where? A cloud.
Well,
where the fuck is this cloud?
Where's
my stuff stored?
What are you worried about?
How do I know it's even there? Why do I want to put it there? How many dollars a month?
This holds everything.
How many dollars a month are they going to charge me to have it there?
Just don't worry about it. It's there. It's nice. It's always going to be. You're going to lose it anyway. They won't lose it.
What? He's showing that blue thing like a guy that had a VHS tape. They don't care about you. They'll go from VHS to CD to Blu-ray to FU, and that technology's gone.
James just saying you can download your cloud onto something that you keep in your pocket, and then you can plug it into any computer you want anytime you want. You know.
Until that USB thing doesn't come on the side of the computer anymore.
Go to the next thing. It'll be fine.
Yeah, that is a good point, E. That is the next computer you buy is not going to have that. It's not going to
It's like you go from VHS to CD. They didn't like think about you and go, okay, well, everybody that's got all these tapes on VHS, this is how you come over here to CD.
Well, look, I bought my entire record collection a second time when it came out on CD. I mean, everybody who had albums, you would buy the album.
But what am I going to do with these photos now that are digital?
Yeah,
like I got them.
It doesn't mean you don't get to listen to Boys to Men anymore.
What are you, dead inside? You just got a bunch of pictures. That's nice. What do you mean? What are you going to do with it? Cherish them. How about that?
But am I going to pay forever to have them?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know
No,
what that deal
no,
is.
you just put them on a flash drive and carried all of them around on this thing.
What was it? Where's the cloud? Is that the cloud?
No, that's not the cloud.
This is, I don't understand it either. But I think here's what I love about this threesome. I think James understands it probably a little more than the rest of us, but James isn't like Ed level, but James understands it. And then I like don't get it at all, but I kind of know a little stuff. And then Emil knows even less than me. So, so it's,
Less.
yeah.
I decided that computers were like a fad a while ago, and I
How'd that
thought,
work
you know, it did not work out
Yeah, I
well.
know.
Computer
It did
scientist.
not.
Hey
nerd.
man, I say it all the time. My junior year, I had to pick an elective, and it came down to typing, learning how to type, or introduction to computers. And I went with typing because that's a skill that would never go out of style.
Yeah, well,
Good choice.
I cheated. I cheated in typing. I had
Girl.
a cheerleader sitting in front of me.
Girl.
Desiree, I still remember Desiree Dentico. She could type like if the test was 60 words a minute, she could do like 120. And so when test day would come, she would type hers, and then she would type a second one, and we used to have to pass them up. And she would pass one back when she turned around, and I'd sign it, and then she'd take her test, and we'd send it back up.
All right.
And so she helped me pass through the typing.
See what's All right. So what was her name again?
Desiree Dentico.
All right. Yeah. So once you got into the
Italian
when
girl.
you got into the Desiree, I thought it was a black girl. But then when you said Dentico, I was like, oh, she's fancy Italian. She's like, she's real
She
Italian.
was fancy Italian.
She's bougie
Yeah.
Italian with
Right.
that funny black girl
She-
name.
She was beautiful. She was bougie.
Yeah, those are, Italian girls and black girls have that. James, that's another thing maybe for your wealthy bougie Italian girls. And
No, I'm already working on the bit black or Roman.
oh,
My high school buddy, he dated her, and so we were tight like that. So she would do my homework for me in typing, and it wasn't a whole year class. It was like a 6-month class.
Yeah.
And so she was on the cheerleading team. Like we got stuff like that done, but it didn't pay off well for me because I didn't know how to type. And then I got had the companies, and then I had employees, and then I had an assistant. And it was
you
like,
never needed the skill.
it was like a computer came out, and I was like, well,
Somebody will know how to do it.
I got an assistant. Like they can keep track of all that. I don't need to invest in that.
You got to be in the clubs till 4 a.m. You don't have time to be learning how to.
Dumbass.
Hey,
me.
more questions pertaining to Desiree Dentico, who I'm fascinated by. Does she have a father who went by something like Fat Tony? Like Fat Tony Dentico.
Sleepy Paul. Yeah.
He was
Oh,
her
before-
dad was her dad was very much the Italian dad, like very much protective over her.
Fat Tony Dentico. You don't want to mess with his daughter.
Uh-huh.
Bad.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
he
not
was. I
quite
think
the
he was in
Italian.
I think he was like in the road paving business.
Sure he was, yeah. It's a great way to hide things. You got to give him
Yeah.
credit. A great way to hide evidence is with your road paving business. Where'd that handgun go? I don't know. All right. Hey, I got a little something here. I wanted to. It is baseball opening day. Look what's back, James. Bringing it back.
Oh, God.
Bringing it back.
I-
Well, don't do this to me.
Did you listen to the Freak today?
Me?
Yeah, I listened to a lot of the Freak today just because the nature of what I was
Yeah,
doing.
A
they
little
got
bit. What
they
about
got
this?
they were supposed to do a live remote out at the ballpark, and then somehow they were told can't do a live here today, and so they had to keep it back at the station. But what I thought was funny was the listeners, instead of going out to the live remote out at the ballpark, drove off to Telus right there by our iHeart and started parking in the parking
Like
lot,
tailgating the show.
like tailgating the show.
That is so great. That's
and Ben and
needs.
Skin.
That's kind
Yeah,
of
Ben
the
and Skin they were talking about it and like giving the listeners props. It was a really fun show today. And then Reiner and Danny and them killed it at the end. Grooves, they called it Gramper. Anyway, it was a great show. Good stuff.
Yeah, I only heard it in small doses. That's so cool. I this must be because you filled in the blanks for me. So apparently those listeners who showed up to listen in the parking lot, Sorry, gotta go back to my baseball music.
Deals no one else has.
Damn.
You don't have to.
Damn. No, I do. I really do.
I don't think you do.
No, I really. Okay. Well, that ain't gonna work. All right, never mind. So that explains Ben had bought a bunch of pizzas for people in the parking lot. Did you guys hear about that?
Or Chick-fil-A.
Oh, I heard pizzas too. There were pizzas.
Well, maybe pizzas later.
'Cause
Yeah.
they were
But,
promoting pizzas. Yeah, that's totally cool. So a bunch of listeners, little Glens as they're called, showed up to, because they got denied their live appearance out there at the ballpark for whatever reason, and they showed up in the station, in the parking lot of the station. And Ben of Ben and Skin, who wasn't even on the air, he just showed up and brought them all pizzas. That's the kind of shit, man. That's the magic kind of connections that stations need to be thinking about doing, and they're the only station doing it.
Oh, and Soroy went out and like they did stuff,
Great.
and then groups went out, and so yeah, it was to me it was just fire today. It was really good, and they were like connecting, and after getting kind of dissed on being out at the Rangers game, like they just kind of turned it into their own thing, and it was awesome.
Did Reiner ever get to talk baseball?
Oh my God, incessantly for about.
That was my lure for him today. He must have got it out of his system. I was like, come talk baseball. Come talk. I am now texting him in this group chat that Danny Bayless established last night. I'm now just going to text him every day. We can't bank on anything, but I'm just going to be that guy that every day sends another text.
Well, that's what makes Reiner great, is that I don't even like baseball, but I don't mind listening to him talk about baseball. It's like I don't mind listening to a chef talk about food.
Well, let's hope you don't mind Emil and I talk a little baseball, because Emil is one of the only. I only have like 3 friends who like baseball, and Emil is one of them. And I haven't had a chance. This is opening day, and as I was talking about on the noon show today, you don't have to go away, James. See, now I don't know. Now I'm distracted because I don't know. Is James pouting, or is James simply gonna go get a beach or something? I mean, I don't know.
I've got a lot of pine needles in the backyard. I was just gonna go rake them real quick. I've got to do some important stuff.
I would actually like your conversation.
And bug tussle.
I'd like his input. on this. We don't. We're not going to do it. We're not going to do it because I don't want to do a subject that is going to be this offensive.
Well, it's not offensive. I'm not offended at all. I just look, if you leave pine needles on the ground, they make the soil acidic and it's bad for the grass.
Okay, all right.
I have a patchy backyard.
Go handle that. I'll ask E, my baseball loving friend.
There was some real thought to why the pine needles needed to come off the grass.
Don't buy my bullshit, dude. Just
hook, line, and sinker. All righty. So as I was talking about in the noon show today, baseball is having a real moment in this very instance. Now, I'm not a big fan of the management. I'm not a big fan of Manfred. I don't imagine that you are either. He's, he's been troubled to just about every team, but the Yankees, he's been pretty tough on, I would say, throughout his tenure. Anyway, I think they're doing some incredible things. They're coming.
Bro, can you throw in some Fogarty or something?
No.
It's been 34 minutes of this organ.
I like this.
Why? Yeah. I liked it too
it's
for
like
about
Christmas
20
music,
minutes.
and it's licensable. I can play it. It's free use. So you want to find me some?
And the organ sounds a lot like an MLB organ, but there are a few stints where I could confuse it with an NHL organ.
Yeah,
damn it.
Absolutely. It's sort of he's playing both kinds of music. It's one guy at an organ playing a hockey arena, organ music, and baseball. So your ear is working. All right, so I want to ask you about the new rules. I haven't talked to you about these new baseball rules. Have you watched the game? I'll give you an example. My White Sox just wrapped up today. They played. It was the ESPN White Sox at Astros. Astros defending champion. They opened up the season. ESPN's big national game. Started at normal time that an evening baseball game starts, which is they come on the air at 7 and the game doesn't start till about 7:20. We got to see Megan Thee Stallion come out, in Houston, and she sang, she threw out the first pitch. By the way, I think she's hot. I saw Megan Thee Stallion and I'm like, she's kind of hot. I mean, she's a big girl. She's curvy, but she's kind of hot. Anyway, dude, the game was over by 9:35 or 8:35. I'm sorry. The game started at 7:20. The game was over by 7:35, somewhere between or 9. The game started at about 7.
So it was 5 minutes, 50 minutes,
No,
or 2.5
It
hours?
was 2 hours and 35 minutes. That's what the baseball game was tonight. And it was beautiful. I mean, and it was I don't know. What do you think of the rules? I haven't heard your thoughts on the shift. I haven't heard the best part of the pitcher's clock rule that I like, and I'd like to get your thoughts on, is that pitchers can no longer just throw over to first base to check a runner anytime they want. They can only do it like twice, and there has to be. It's almost like throwing the flag when you're an NFL coach. You only get so many chances to do it, and then you're all done. You can't check that runner, and he's going to steal on you. So what are your thoughts on the rules?
I like the no shift. I really that in my mind made me stop watching baseball because I got so irritated at their inability to hit to the opposite field or to hit to the place where there wasn't anybody. Like I mean, when I played baseball, it was like you had to learn how to hit to left, to middle, to the right.
Hitting to all fields was a skill a hitter coveted.
You didn't get to play if you could. Well, I mean, you were on the bench. You weren't a starter if you couldn't hit to all fields.
Well,
and I just can't imagine getting the paycheck that they're getting paid the amount of money that they're getting paid to go up there and strike out or.
Well, here's what I would tell you about that.
You know.
They're getting the money that they're getting because they stepped away from that old school way of thinking about hitting. That hitting approach of hitting to all fields, that didn't mesh with these new launch angle metrics and all of these. Now, what are these things doing? These things are providing better opportunity to hit the long ball. And that's all they care about now. Why? Because the long ball players get the big money. Look at what Judge just got. How many times does Judge strike out?
All right, we're talking player and then what I would call team or winning strategy. I can't figure out if you get a ghost runner on second or a zombie runner on second, why you are not bunting come immediately.
Yeah, well, you're going to start seeing that though now. You're going to start seeing more action.
Because of the shift?
Yeah, everybody's been saying what you're saying. Why aren't we seeing some of these other plays? These rules, especially with the bigger bases, which are going to encourage more steals, and then you couple that with the pitcher's inability to check runners at first base, you're going to have way more action on the base pass, which means you're going to start to see more bunting. Because you've now got a better, incrementally, but a better chance of swiping that base. How many guys were thrown out last year in baseball? Ooh, by that much. Guess what? That much is safe this year. So we're going to see, this is all Major League Baseball from Manfred on down, their attempt to make the game more exciting. And I may not love every single new change, but I'm going to say keep going, keep coming up with things. You know what I'd like to see, E? I would like to see on the television broadcasts a speed clock on the runners trying to beat out an infield hit. Like, I want to see how fast they're running. We started to see that in the NFL. They started to show Justin Fields when he would run 22, 23, 24 miles per hour. Wouldn't that be a fun innovation to see how fast these players are around the base paths, especially from home to first, or stealing first to second? I mean, these are just more things that make the game more fun. Little things, innovations like that.
As a baseball fan, supporter, booster, whatever, one of the criticisms of the new rule change is you're trying to attract people that weren't going to watch baseball anyway, and you're appealing to people like me. I think the pitch clock is probably a good idea. I'm still not going to watch baseball. So my question is, are you losing any fans? Are there any baseball traditionalists who are like, that's it, I'm done with this sport?
No, if you're a 65-year-old Boston Red Sox fan, you ain't leaving, righty? I mean, these old heads, they ain't leaving.
I don't think there's anything. I mean, I think they maybe have lost a little bit of luster on some of these statistics, because now you can have a game-winning hit or a walk-off, whereas that didn't exist before.
We are new. We are today, we witnessed the start of something that we will hear referenced in baseball circles for years. This was the start of the pitch clock era. Everything
Right.
from baseball before what happened today on opening day when they introduced the pitch clock, everything else is going to be, when they talk about, well, that was before, that was pre-pitch clock era. And what does that change? Think about a guy like Ricky Henderson, who's like the all-time base stealer when the base paths were actually further apart or the bases were smaller. His record's going to fall. Nobody thought his record's going to fall. His record will fall in the next couple of years because there's going to be so much more base running now.
Well, you said something I didn't know. What's the new rule on the checking the runners at first?
I'm not entirely sure. I think you can only throw to check a runner twice per at bat. I think that's it. So if it's bottom of the ninth in the full count and you got a runner at first and the pitcher's trying to get his head straight and he tries to buy a little time by throwing to first base 5 times in a row, you can't do that anymore. It's twice.
Okay, but like after he does it twice, the guy can just go? Because what's to stop him from taking the biggest leadoff he wants?
Well, he'd have to throw the ball to the catcher and the catcher would have to try and make a play at second. You got to go through with the pitch. Wow. Yeah, you can go. Once he's set, the runner at first can go. Yeah, go E.
See, and I'm going to argue that your bases being bigger does not affect the transaction between the catcher and the runner from first.
I think it gives the runner from first an advantage. I think he's.
I would disagree. I would disagree.
How can it not? It's literally a bigger base.
Because if you look at the corner of the bag, right? Like it's set up there on the corner, and it comes down over here, right? It's come actually closer to the plate as well.
Well, I think it's proven. I mean, I think that's the reason they did it because it's shorter.
But the bag has come closer to the plate.
I don't know. These are all, I've just started digesting all of these. I'm not sure. I'll tell you the thing that I do like, and that I heard somebody say tonight, and I thought, yeah, man, that's a great idea. They're trying to grow the sport of Major League Baseball. So yeah, maybe guys in their 50s or 40s who have never been baseball fans won't come because of these changes. But you know who might? My kid, your kid. This is about the next generation, creating a television experience that is going to be thrilling for them. They're used to being thrilled all the time. Now, to that end, they said tonight, one of the reasons that it was difficult to take a kid to a baseball game because Bye, Brady. Excuse me. One of the reasons that they failed to attract new audiences was because games are starting at 7:30 for commercial purposes, because that's better to have commercials running in prime time, so that's when games start. Now, what happens with a 3.5, 4-hour game when it starts at 7:30 on a Tuesday evening when the kids have school? Parents aren't taking the kids to that game. That's a 4-hour game, 3.5 hours. They're getting home and those kids in bed at midnight. With a 2.5-hour baseball game that starts at 7:30 in the evening, and you're in bed by 10:30, that's doable. I mean, these are all the little micro changes that they're instituting. That is one of the real drivers behind the push to have the pitchers speed it up, because they want to attract families back to the ballpark, which I think is a great thing.
I like that thought. I don't know that it'll change.
All right.
So
baseball talk is over. Sorry, James.
No, well, look, I got one more. I got one more thing to add to it.
Please.
One of baseball's problems is that the crowd that they're trying to attract has this constant dopamine taps that are going on them. So they're used to playing Fortnite. They're used to watching TikTok. They're used to scrolling through Twitter and just bam, 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 bam. Hockey does that. And I know y'all don't believe it, but soccer does that, because at all times the soccer ball is moving and something is going on. Mm-hmm. And I think the fatal flaw that baseball has always had to solve is, what do they do with all this goddamn downtime in this freaking sport? Because it works so good when the main medium of exchange and passing information around is newspapers, where the box score can tell you the whole story. And I think really this pitch clock might need to be tightened up a little more, and it would change the game to where it's like, let's get this ball. You can pitch it, man. Let's get this ball. Let's pitch it.
Well, we saw a number of times today the 8-second rule. Now, I don't know if you know this is a part of the pitch clock. By the time the pitch clock is at 8 seconds, the pitcher must be engaged with the batter, meaning no more of this. You got at 8 seconds, when that friggin' clock hits 8 seconds, you have to be dialed in and staring at the pitcher and in your set motion. If you're not, boom, they call it. That affected, I think, 3 games today where pitchers were called for 8-second violations. I mean, these pitchers, they've been slowing the game down for 100 years. It's time to speed it up.
So I watched baseball when I was a kid, but I had more free time, and that kind of explained why I didn't have a whole lot of other options. As an adult, I haven't watched any baseball, but I used to play it a ton, and we used to run out here in Bug Tussle. We would call it speedball. We're doing the speedball rules, where when you got the ball, you freaking throw it. You know, there ain't no time to sit around and I'm gonna adjust my freaking cleats. No, throw it. Come on, let's go. And speedball was awesome. And if they could somehow get closer to speedball, it would win me over.
And that's what they're attempting to do with all make on the field presentation more exciting.
I am a previous baseball fan that could be won back if they keep pursuing this path, but they're not there yet.
Well, we'll see. They're in there. I said today, the other issue is, our communities. When E and I were kids, every community we ever lived in probably had 15 baseball fields or softball fields. Every community had backstops and diamonds and all that kind of stuff. You know what every community in America has now, James?
I don't know.
Water parks, gigantic public water parks. I used to, when I was a kid, I had to drive an hour to get to a water park. So let me tell you, your tax dollars that used to make all those beautiful manicured fields and parks for baseball and softball, nah, man, they must have struck it good on some bond they invested in, and they went hard into water parks. My hometown's got like this water park that's like Wet and Wild. And if you live in the town, you can go there for free. You know what I mean?
And look, it's funny because
stopped encouraging people to play baseball is my point.
And to Emil's point, like, we can't hit it from field to field. I can't. The kids these days can't hit it from right field and left field, but they sure as hell know how to go pee in the lazy river.
Yeah, they do. They're really good at going down a slip and slide. They can do that.
That's important.
This generation, Hall of Fame sliders, all of them. Well, all right. I'm done with baseball talk. James, you got anything you want to say? I got some fun stuff, so go ahead.
I have another baseball related piece of content here, and I've been digging through the archives, and it's not all good stuff, man. Some of this is, yeah. So, do you even want to hear a Pugs and Kelly Rangers theme song?
Yes, I do. From what, 2003?
I think it's 2004. I'm not sure.
Hey, so Rangers won an exciting game today.
You could enter this into, because everybody was coming up with the Rangers songs today. You could have entered this in from 2003.
Yeah.
Is there a statute of limitations on this stuff? So, yeah. And for people who don't know what the hell's going on, when I was on the Pugs and Kelly show, and even
by the way, that's the shirt I have. That's the dodgeball shirt I have.
It is, isn't it?
It's the exact dodgeball shirt that I have. As a matter of fact, it's in Emil's wash right now.
That's me in front of Duke's holding a dodgeball in the dodgeball jersey in front of the giant American flag screen printed window. It looks so awesome. What contest did I miss out on?
I don't know.
The Ranger song contest, Emil?
Oh yeah, the
Ranger
songs. So let's hear this. What year is this? Do you know what year this is?
I think this is I think it's 2004.
Let's hear it.
Not entirely sure. It's only 2 minutes though.
I hope it makes the doc.
America's pastime in Eric's hood. Another Ranger season and they're looking good. At the top of the standings with not much to go. Will they win the pennant? Hell no. They're going to blow it like a Clinton intern. You're going down in flames, baby. Watch it burn. They'll do it every time. When will you learn? It is never, ever going to be our turn. You can smoke while you do it. It's not really a sport. In the dugout, you can burn a whole pack of Newports. Remember the Phillies batting champ John Krug, best hitter in the game. Only had one nut. Baseball's a joke, man. What you gonna do? Why the hell's your coach in a uniform too? I hear you meatheads always plead your cases, but your best player ever couldn't run the bases. Guys are always scratching your nuts and spitting at the first sign of rains. You're first to be quitting. Don't get your polyester wet, you little bitch. Don't tell me how hard it is to hit a pitch. You don't even have to keep yourself in good shape. You run 90 feet and then you take a break. That's not true. I hit a double today. You ran 60 yards, are you gonna be okay? You can smoke while you do it, it's not really a sport. In the dugout, you can burn a whole pack of Newports. Remember the Phillies batting champ, John Krug, best hitter in the game, only had one nut. Baseball's a joke, man, what you gonna do? Why the hell's your coach in a uniform too? I hear you meet heads, always pleading your cases, but your best player ever couldn't run the bases. Okay, I will admit that actually going to the ballpark is fun, but that's just because there's a lot to do while nothing is going on. Half the time I don't even watch the game. I just drink my weight in overpriced beer, hit on some fat chicks, and lose $10 to the dot race. Yeah, the dot race. You're my boy, Blue. You can smoke while you do it, it's not really a sport. In the dugout, you can burn a whole pack of Newports. Remember the Phillies batting champ, John Krug, best hitter in the game, only had one nut. Baseball's a joke, man, what you gonna do? Why the hell's your coach in a uniform too? I hear you meet heads, always pleading your cases, but your best player ever couldn't run the bases.
Oh, come on. Of course I remember that. One of my all-time favorites. A Live 105.3 banger for the ages.
I think it would have passed the test of time. There wasn't really anything in there.
You know, yeah, I thought that too.
Threw it under the bus.
I thought that too. I was listening for aside there's a Clinton joke, there's a John Kruk reference, some of those things. But
Well,
whatever.
yeah.
You can overdub those. You can write a new joke that rhymes, and you can just exchange Kruk for like Trout. You'll be fine.
Yeah, but doesn't Trout have both of his nuts?
Well, you'll have to find a new joke, James. I mean, you're the genius. That is fantastic. One of the all-time best. And when I say all-time best, I mean James. One of the all-time best at this stuff. One of the all-time best.
Yeah, I didn't know I missed the contest.
It's going to be shocking to you. I'm going to put you up there with some of the all-time greats that I've ever heard do the parody song thing. I would put you up there with Kelly. Would y'all be surprised to know that Kelly's the best freaking parody songwriter that I've ever heard? Parody songs for Danny Bonaducci back in the 90s were absolutely brilliant. I would put her above everybody else, but I would put you right next to Danny Bayless.
Good. That's high praise.
You're as good as Danny. As a matter of fact, remember when we were talking, I said to Danny, I go, he's kind of you, but less successful.
That's a great description. Yeah, he's a better musician than I am too. He can play stuff that I can't, that I've heard that I'm jealous of.
No, that's terrific, man.
All right, so we're going to Roller Town tomorrow.
Are we?
What do you mean, are we? Whether it's raining or
I
not.
just wanted to throw a little bit of whiz on the fire. That's all.
Okay, because you pissed on. I'm enthusiastic about this.
Man, I'm starting to fall asleep. Yeah, okay, so what are we doing? So tomorrow we're going to Roller Town. That's up there in Salina. What is it, a block party? E's got questions. E, go.
Oh, it's a block party. It's the disco.
Gemini Soul Disco Party.
Gemini Disco Party. Yeah.
Why did I hear block party?
It is.
Because it's a block party, too. Ben Anskin will be there. It's out at Roller Town.
How do you know all this stuff now when like 3 hours ago you didn't know anything?
I listened to the station. And they advertised.
Oh, they did? Oh, okay, good. Oh, so you did hear it. And you cleared that it's all right for kids?
Yes, it's all right for kids.
Yeah, I specifically asked Skin himself. I can bring my kids, right? He's like, of course. I was like, well, don't tell me of course. I've never been there, dude.
Well, when you say it that way, did he mean like, of course, you and your 2 kids can come and that's it? And, you don't worry about it. It's not that bad. Does he know you're bringing like 50 kids? Like we're bringing kids. We're coming. You've got like 12.
It's a block party. Block.
I know. I hope so.
Party.
That sounds fun. That sounds great. I hope it doesn't rain. I hope it's nice and cool.
I know you guys like to have a little bit of fun, but let's try and keep our heads about us because there's going to be some industry helpful people there.
I am not going to this thing at all with work on the brain.
I'm not either. And quite frankly, you don't have to worry about me drinking because as I proudly boast often, my son has never seen me drunk. So, I'm not going to be drunk. I'm going to be with my kid. I'll get a buzz on. I mean, we'll have some laughs, but, I ain't doing shots when I'm out hanging. I'm not setting that example for my 13-year-old who's already got a whole bunch of Irish bad genetics going through him.
I hope y'all are just saying this for the camera because I was under the impression that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, we're always hustling if it's in front of us. I hope y'all are just kind of posing for...
I just know that my kid's going to want to eat a lot of food.
Maybe we're just not saying that publicly. We're just
What do you mean publicly? I want to eat some food.
No, publicly hustling. It's more effective if you're like, oh, I'm so funny to bump into you here. I Heart Dallas executive who has decision-making powers over programming.
I don't anticipate anything like that. I would
Hey,
run
did you
from
know
that.
this week is when Reagan got shot?
Yeah.
I think you should. I
Hey!
think you
Yeah.
should not. I think you should not play this, sir.
Well, what year is it?
If you had any respect,
Today on this very subject, thanks for listening. None of my friends listen. I got one real friend who listens from Chicago. He's like, did you know it was on this day? I did 20 minutes on this and about how he's the greatest singer-songwriter who also that ever lived.
That's not true either. John Wilkes Booth was probably the biggest actor in America when
he should not be played on a day like today in respect to Ronald Reagan and Brady.
I played the
Brady. More importantly, Brady.
Yeah, Barney line is north of Frisco.
Come out there tomorrow. Rollertown. We'll probably be there around 6 or probably more like 7. Shit. Are we having connection issues or is that Pugs?
Yeah, no, that's him again.
Yeah, you seem to be working fine. It's just Pugs.
Why? What's going on?
That means
over
we're
there?
doing fine. He's just glitching out. I don't know, man. Maybe the dog like knocked his cable out or something. But he froze on us. But yeah, dude, for those of y'all who don't know, Ben and Skin and a bunch of other people from the Freak are going to be at Rollertown tomorrow. Gemini Soul Disco Party. It's supposed to start like around 6 or so, but we probably won't be there till about 7-ish. Me and my family. And Pugs is going to be there with his kid. Name was going to be there with his kid. Is Wendy coming?
I don't know.
Wow, you don't know.
May just be boys.
Because my hot redheaded wife is going to be there for sure. And my 4 kiddos. So, yes, Salina, north of Frisco, Rollertown. I've never been to Salina in my life, so I've definitely never been to Rollertown. But I have known Ben for 23 years, and it's a damn shame I hadn't supported him more than this. There, look who's back. Here, you want to come back on?
I don't know. Am I back?
What's going on over there? Why is your internet glitchy?
Yeah, I don't know. It happens sometimes.
What year did Hinckley shoot Reagan?
1983.
So this is it. This is the 40-year anniversary.
1981.
Should
It
we do
was
something
1981. I was guessing, but I said it confidently. I think it's 1981 because I was in 6th grade.
Okay. Is that what you recall, Emil?
79.
I know he wasn't president in 79.
That's our boy.
Someone's done a lot of mushrooms.
When did John Hinckley assassinate President Reagan?
Attempt to assassinate.
He did not assassinate him.
81.
According to
Anyway,
Wikipedia,
thank you.
on March 30th, 1981, President of the
There you
United States Ronald Reagan.
We're playing a whole bunch of his hits today.
Jr. in Washington, D.C.
All right, so it's the 42nd anniversary of our theme song artist.
What about the poor guy Brady?
Yeah, that was terrible. James Brady.
Well, look, if he had cut some good acoustic songs, then we might be playing them for bumper music.
I don't know if you know about my lifelong edict, but I separate the art from the artist. And quite frankly, the artist, John Hinckley, might be weird and tried to kill President Reagan, but the art that he produces shouldn't suffer at the hands of the madness of the creator.
Download the Florida Stories podcast. You will get texted by your crush within 30 seconds.
I just made that up. That sounded pretty good. That's why he just goes away. Had more I wanted to talk to him about.
Why will you get texted by your crush in 30 seconds?
Because you downloaded and followed the Florida Stories podcast. And the person,
Who's that?
my Florida Stories podcast is one of the top 20, maybe 30 Florida podcasts out there.
Who's that? He's the best. We love having E back. All right, E. All right, James. You guys can
Was
go
there
now.
something else?
What? No, there's nothing else. All right, folks. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We're done for the week. Come join us. Come on. I'll talk about it again tomorrow, just in case you forget it all. The Roller Town Salina tomorrow night, like 6, 7 o'clock. We're going with our kids. Nothing to be any. We're not going to be crazy or anything like that. But we're going to have fun, and we'd love to meet you. If you're some of the diehards that I see either every day on the High Noon Show or here, I recognize we're a close-knit group. We're not drawn from the biggest pond to begin with, and we're going to a pretty selective location. But, you want to hang out. Be nice to see you. Be nice to put a human soul to the chat name. I guess that's the best way to put it. All right, folks, I'll see you tomorrow at noon. High noon tomorrow. I don't know if you saw, but there's some really big news that broke tonight, and I think we're probably going to talk about it tomorrow. Best to ya. See ya.